Bibliophiles of the internet, it is finally time for me to share the best books I read in 2025. In case you don't know, I do my favorites videos a little bit differently. I don't do top 5s or top 10s, I don't rank my books, I don't separate them by genre, I don't share plot summaries, or even my general thoughts. I go through every single one of my favorite books I read for the year in chronological order and share something that I took away, a reflection, or even a question that stuck with me from that particular book. There's only two main criteria for books that make this list. First, I have to have read and loved them, for obvious reasons, and secondly, they have to be books that I read for the first time in 2025, regardless of whether they were actually published in 2025 or not. So if I personally read and loved a book for the first time in 2025, then it's on this list. As always, this video is a tremendous labor of love that takes a lot of energy and a lot of work, so I hope it shows and I hope you enjoy. Just a heads up, it also might look a little bit different this year because, as you might know, I was recovering from an illness at the end of 2025, beginning of 2026, so I had to do things a little bit differently because I didn't have the same time or energy to give as I've had in years past. But I really hope you enjoy it all the same, so let's just get started. Starting with The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Katherine Arden. Protecting our lives is not the only way that we survive. Our beliefs, our humanity, the ability to imagine a future for ourselves, the richness of our inner lives are all things worth fighting to hold on to, no matter what. The Dream Hotel by Leila Leilami. If the powers that be want to take something from us, the unfortunate truth is that they will find a way to take it. But that doesn't mean we have to obey in advance. Our spirit and our willingness to resist is something that can't be quantified, predicted, or taken away from us. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Every single day we wake up in the endless, ever-changing labyrinth that is life, and part of our work is committing ourselves to painstakingly mapping out every possible pathway, even if we might never figure out how close we are to the end. Amateur by Thomas Page McBee. Control, dominance, and violence are not the true hallmarks of masculinity or even strength that society would lead us to believe. True strength is found in the not knowing, in failing, in losing, in being willing to admit that we don't know what the right or correct thing might be, and being brave enough to trust that other people will help to fill in those gaps. It's All or Nothing Vale by Andrea Beatriz Arango. We cannot stake the entirety of ourselves in just one thing or identity or skill or hobby or experience. Humans are meant to contain multitudes, and the more of those multitudes we allow ourselves to discover, the bigger and more beautiful our world becomes. Algorithms of Oppression by Safiya Umoja Noble. Now more than ever, we have to think critically not only about where our information comes from, but who benefits from the sharing of that information. More and more of our understanding of the world is not only shaped by the information we have, but by the information we don't get to have. A Split Second by Janae Marks. There's no such thing as wasted time. The things we do, the choices we make, the ways we show up in the world and for the people around us will always change the fabric of the universe, even in ways that are too small for us to see. Original Sins by Eve L. Ewing. The American school system is one that perpetuates and rewards colonial values and colonial forms of knowledge. If we want to measure how successful that system truly is, we have to look at the populations that are most marginalized and most harmed by its framework. The River Has Roots by Amal El-Motar. In many ways, the world is designed to push us further and further away from the people we love over time. But there's something really powerful about continuing to fight our way back to each other despite the forces in time and changes that conspire to keep us apart. Those Beyond the Wall by Micaiah Johnson. Anger is a sacred and necessary component of change. There will always be a fundamental difference between senseless hate and righteous anger. The latter is so incredibly precious and always worth protecting. Futbolista by Gianni Gazavia. The world wants us to believe that we can only ever be successful if we present ourselves as neutral, as being inoffensive to the largest amount of people possible. But every part of ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is with us in every single thing we do. And therefore, everything we achieve is accomplished because of everything we bring to the table as our fullest selves. Love at Second Sight by F.T. Lukens. We might not be able to stop the future from happening, but we can prepare ourselves to face it as best we can, and we can find people who will anchor us and be there for us as we navigate those changes. The Cosmic Color by T.T. Madden. Doing what's always been done simply because it's what's always been done only serves to limit the world around us and all the possibilities of what it might become. The first step to imagining and creating a better future is to choose that future to begin with. A Gentleman's Gentleman by T.J. Alexander. There are so many pathways to joy if only we allow ourselves to see them, and there are so many people willing to get in the trenches with us and to do good if we only give them a chance. A Sharp Endless Need by Matt Crane. The ways we define and understand ourselves are not the same as the ways we allow ourselves to be defined by the people and experiences in our lives. And even though the creation of our own mythology can become hopelessly tangled up in that way, it's worth picking apart and discovering the roots that we tend for ourselves. I Keep My Exoskeletons to Myself by Matt Crane. The opposite of oppression isn't liberation or peace, it's resistance. For every one thing that can be stripped away or forcibly taken, there is so much more that can never, ever be taken from us. The Duke Steals Hearts and Other Body Parts by Elias Colt. We may not be able to control how other people see us, but we can control how we show up in the world, how we show up for other people, and how we show up for ourselves. And all we can do is hope that people meet our truth with their own truth. Lost Ark Dreaming by Suyi Davies Okumbowa. We cannot condemn ourselves to living within the very limited imagination of the few. Rather, we have to be brave enough to create new and unprecedented futures that include each and every one of us. Twelfth Night by Alexine Farrell Fulmuth. While it's true that we should be unapologetically ourselves and uncompromising when it comes to holding each other to higher standards, that's not an excuse to weaponize our autonomy and isolate ourselves. We can still grow and even change without losing touch with the truest parts of ourselves. Alligator Tears by Edgar Gomez. In many ways, queerness and the queer imagination is the antithesis of the capitalist system, which tries to force us to believe that individualism is aspirational, that it's our responsibility to prove our strength by shouldering everything by ourselves, when true strength is knowing when to let your people and your community help you shoulder that weight. The No Girlfriend Rule by Kristen Randall. Real friendship is meant to pour into you and add to your life in meaningful, quantifiable ways. And the best kind of friends are the ones who give you space to make mistakes, to try again, and to evolve in ways that you would never expect. The Lilac People by Milo Todd. History is so much more than just what is recorded or documented. It's a living record that we wear on our bodies. It's something that we carry with us throughout our entire lives. It's the stories and truths that we keep alive in our hearts. Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang. Everything that's ever been created or will ever be created does not and cannot exist in a vacuum. Everything and everyone exists in conversation with not only what came before, but also with what is still yet to come. And that contextualization is a key component of deriving meaning and understanding why the things we create matter. Sex Is As Sex Does by Paisley Cura. Our social understanding of sex and gender classifications is less important than state-defined and enforced legal boundaries, which impact and limit not just trans people, but all people. It's crucial that we choose righteous antagonism and expand our legal imagination in terms of what gender means and why it matters to the state in the first place. The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. Desire and fear can be two sides of the same coin. It's not uncommon to love something deeply, whether it's a person, your family, your country, your people, or a way of life that will simply never love you back or recognize you in return. But that doesn't mean we stop trying to carve out those spaces for ourselves. They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us by Hanif Abdurraqib. When we think about what it means to truly feel alive, to be fully connected to our own humanity, and to witness other people connected to theirs, we inevitably have to think about what it means to powerfully experience something and not get to share that experience with those who aren't in the room. Our greatest experiences are defined just as much by absence as they are by presence. Boys in the Void by Jira Asim. Our relationship to music and art is a sacred act of self-expression and a form of legacy for those who care to listen. Not only does our connection to art reveal so much about us, but for those relegated to the margins, it's often one of the most powerful ways we can make ourselves legible in the world. The Forever Desert series by Moses Ose Otomi. If what we believe creates and reinforces the parameters of our world, both our inner worlds and the external world around us, then what we're able to imagine helps us to push those boundaries and free ourselves from those limitations. You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. Our freedom to live as ourselves and make our own decisions about our lives will always be worth fighting for. But if our liberation comes at the cost of our autonomy or someone else's autonomy, then it's too high a price to pay. Bad in the Blood by Matteo L. Cirilli. Society often reinforces that it's more important to be seen as civil than it is to actually be humane, especially when we resist. But true justice is not neat or comfortable or palatable. It's disruptive, it's transgressive, and it requires us us to get our hands dirty in the process. Video games have always been queer by Bo Ruberg. Queerness is so much more than just sexuality and gender. It's a transgressive way of moving through the world that doesn't just end at our identities, our labels, or the language we use to express ourselves. Much like video games, queerness is an invitation to play, to explore, to discover, and to find and create meaning on our own terms within this system of very rigid rules. Ebony and the Kingdom of Gold by P. Djeli Clark. Like it or not, we are all citizens of the same earth, and even when we don't agree with each other, we all share the blame, at least to some extent, when things go wrong. But that also means we're called to work together in order to shift the tides and make things become right. When the Tides Held the Moon by Vanessa Vita Kelly. It can be easy to become comfortable or complacent in our own captivity. Our love for each other can be a liberating force, but it can also be a way that we hold each other captive, that we keep each other trapped in what's familiar and safe. But to truly love someone is to allow them the space to grow and change, with or without us. The Transition by Logan Ashley Kisner. The world so badly wants us to believe that every choice we make is permanent, that everything progresses in a purely linear direction with no backtracking or takebacks. But the more complicated truth is that nothing is permanent, nothing is stable, nothing is guaranteed. Change is perhaps the only constant thing guaranteed in life, and to be human is to be constantly becoming. Mood Machine by Liz Pelly. Art is made to be experienced, enjoyed, and actively engaged with, not to be passively consumed or relegated to the background. When we crack open the door to passivity, we open up ourselves to being inundated with so-called art that means nothing, makes us feel nothing, and adds nothing to our lives. The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. When all is said and done, love is a commitment, both to each other and to ourselves. A commitment not only to protecting each other, showing up for each other, and saving each other as many times as it takes, but also fighting to free each other from the chains that bind us, even and especially when we are the ones holding those chains. Starshipped by Kat Sebastian. Allowing ourselves to love and also accept love takes work. Caring for other people and taking time to care for ourselves takes work. Just because you have to work at something doesn't make you less of a human and doesn't mean the work isn't worth doing to begin with. After Hours at Dooryard Books by Kat Sebastian. There will always be people who need help, just like there will always be people who have help to give. And there will be so many times in our lives where we find ourselves on either side of that equation. Needing help doesn't make you a failure, it makes you human. According to Plan by Kristen Randall. There's more than just one path. There's more than just one way to grow. There's more than just one way to live life. And we could hold so much more joy in our lives if we let go of the way things are supposed to be and instead focus on ways of being that actually bring meaning and purpose to our lives. Best Woman by Rose Damu. There's something to be said about holding on to the past and honoring all the previous iterations of yourself without judgment or shame. And there's something precious about having people in your life who see you not just for what you've become, but for who you truly are, and who love you the same through all your countless evolutions. Dear Mothman by Robin Gao. Not all questions need to have definitive answers. Sometimes being brave enough to ask the question, to allow ourselves the time and space to wonder, to ponder, to reflect, is the entire point. Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. Wanting to feel loved, wanting to know that the people in our lives care about us and want us to be with them is not a weakness or a failing. Holding the good things and the good people in our lives close with both hands is something we should be doing any and every chance we possibly get. And finally, B. Mullins Takes a Shot by Emily Diebert. Being great at everything we try or even everything we love is not actually a prerequisite for enjoying things and having meaningful experiences in life. Part of being human is having the freedom to try and fail, to be mediocre, to be imperfect, and to still find joy regardless of how we measure success. So there you have it. Those are all my favorite books of 2025. I read so many amazing things this past year, but those are the books that stood out to me the most. If you have any of these books on your radar, let me know, or feel free to stop by the comments down below and share your favorite books of 2025. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, educate yourself, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself and others, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.